What is this doing here?
The antique mirror caught my eye because it was cracked, a perfect zigzag running from corner to corner like lightning frozen in glass. I wasn't looking for broken things that Saturday morning at Beaumont's Architectural Salvage, but sometimes broken things find you. I'd come for a specific piece, a pre-war dresser the auction house had advertised online, the kind of find that makes my pulse quicken. Solid mahogany, dovetail joints, the craftsmanship they don't make anymore. I restore furniture for a living, and this dresser would be my masterpiece. The mirror hung behind it, almost hidden by the crowd of weekend treasure hunters. I was examining the dresser's grain when I glanced up and saw something that made my life fluid freeze. In that cracked reflection, 40 feet away near the garden salvage section, my wife Rena was kissing another man. Not a friendly peck, a deep, familiar kiss between lovers who'd done this many times before. The man was Seth Tremaine, my sister-in-law's husband, my former business partner, the fool who'd screwed me over on the Riverside renovation 3 years ago. I stood perfectly still, watching through that broken mirror as they whispered something, laughed, then separated like nothing had happened. They hadn't seen me. The crowd provided perfect cover. My hands were shaking when I raised my bidding paddle for the dresser. The auctioneer's voice sounded underwater. Lot 47, mahogany dresser with original hardware. Do I hear 200? I barely heard the numbers climbing. All I could think about was that kiss, the way Rena's hand had rested on Seth's chest, the casual intimacy that spoke of months, maybe years of deception. Sold to paddle 93 for $450. That was me. I just bought a dresser I didn't want while watching my marriage shatter in a cracked mirror. Then something clicked in my brain. The same methodical thinking that helped me restore broken furniture, finding the weak joints and stress points before rebuilding something stronger. I raised my paddle again. Lot 48, antique standing mirror with carved frame, some damage to the glass. 600, I called out, my voice surprisingly steady. The auctioneer looked surprised. Nobody else had bid on a broken mirror. Sold to paddle 93 for $600. I just spent over $1,000, but I'd bought myself something more valuable than furniture. I'd bought proof, and time to figure out exactly what I was going to do about it. Walking to the payment desk, I kept my face neutral as Rena approached from across the lot. She looked radiant, flushed with what I now knew wasn't just the excitement of antiquing. Her auburn hair caught the morning light, and she wore that satisfied smile I used to think was meant for me. "Find anything good?" she asked, slipping her arm through mine like she'd done for 17 years of marriage. "A few pieces for the workshop," I said. "How about you?" "Nothing special, just browsing with Felice while Seth looked at some tools." She gestured vaguely toward the garden section where I'd seen them together. "You know how he is with his projects." I knew exactly how Seth was with his projects. 3 years ago, he'd convinced me to partner with him on a historic home renovation. We'd bought a 1920s colonial for $60,000, planning to flip it for twice that. Seth had handled the permits and contracts while I focused on the restoration work. 6 months in, I discovered he'd been billing the client for materials I'd already paid for, essentially stealing from both me and the homeowner. When I confronted him, he'd claimed it was a misunderstanding and promised to fix it. Instead, he'd transferred the property into his name only, sold it for $140,000, and left me holding nothing but debt. The legal battle had cost me more than just money. It had cost me my trust in people, my faith that doing good work mattered, and nearly my marriage when Rena had suggested maybe I'd been too trusting about the business side. Now she was sleeping with him. "Ready to head home?" Rena asked. I promised the kids we'd take them to that new Mexican place for lunch. "Sure," I said. "Let me just arrange delivery for these pieces." As we walked to the car, I watched Seth loading a vintage workbench into his truck. He caught my eye and waved cheerfully, the same easy smile he'd worn when he was stealing from me. I waved back. The drive home to our lake house took 20 minutes through Savannah's Spanish moss and suburban sprawl. Rena chattered about her work. She produced lifestyle segments for the local ABC affiliate, feel-good pieces about Southern families and traditional values. The irony wasn't lost on me. "I'm doing a piece next week about couples who've been married over 15 years, she said, checking her lipstick in the visor mirror. "The secret to lasting relationships." I thought we might be good subjects. "What would we say?" I asked, keeping my eyes on the road. "Oh, trust, communication, shared interests, the usual things that make marriages work." Trust? Right. Our house sat on 3 acres overlooking Lake Beaumont, a sprawling ranch I'd extensively renovated over the past decade. Every piece of custom woodwork, every built-in cabinet, every restored hardwood floor bore my signature. It was my masterpiece, but more than that, it was my fortress. Our kids were waiting in the kitchen when we got home. Ava, 17, looked up from her phone with that practiced teenager indifference. She had Rena's sharp features and green eyes, but thankfully my steadier temperament, most of the time. Caleb, 14, was building something with Legos at the kitchen island. He had my hands, long fingers good for detail work, and my patience for seeing projects through to completion. "How was the auction, Dad?" Caleb asked without looking up from his construction. "Productive," I said. "Found some interesting pieces." "Anything for my room?" Ava asked hopefully. She'd been wanting an antique vanity table for months. "We'll see. I need to assess what I bought first." Rena disappeared upstairs to change, and I found myself really looking at my children for the first time in weeks. When had I stopped paying attention to their daily lives? When had I started treating them like furniture in my own house? Present, functional, but not really seen. "Dad, you okay?" Caleb had stopped building and was studying my face with the intensity he usually reserved for instruction manuals. "Just thinking about work," I said. "Hey, can I trust you with something?" His face lit up. At 14, being asked to share an adult secret was the highest honor. "Of course. I'm planning a surprise renovation project, but it's going to require some detective work, research. Think you're up for that?" "Like, what kind of research?" "The kind that stays between us, at least for now." Caleb nodded solemnly. "You can trust me, Dad." Trust. There was that word again. That evening, after the kids were in bed and Rena was watching her shows, I went out to my workshop. The building sat separate from the house, connected by a covered walkway I'd designed to match the main structure's craftsman style. Inside, the familiar smells of wood stain and linseed oil usually calmed me. Tonight, they couldn't touch the rage building in my chest. I had work to do. First, I called Tommy Beaumont, who ran the auction house. His family had been in the salvage business for 3 generations, and he owed me a favor from when I'd authenticated a disputed piece for him last year. "Elias, good to see you today. That mirror's an interesting choice. Most folks shy away from damaged pieces." "Sometimes the damage tells the most important story," I said. "Listen, I need a favor. That mirror came from an estate sale, right? I'd like to know more about its history. For restoration purposes." "Sure thing. Let me pull the paperwork." I heard him shuffling through files. "Here we go. Came from the Whitfield estate on Bull Street. They're downsizing, moving to a retirement community." "Why?" "Just curious about the frame's construction. Mind if I get their contact information?" "I might want to ask about other pieces they're selling." "I'll email it to you tonight." Step 1 complete. I needed to establish a paper trail for everything I was about to do. If this went where I thought it was going, I'd need documentation. Next, I opened my laptop and began researching Georgia divorce law, specifically infidelity statutes and how they affected property division. What I found was interesting. Georgia was a no-fault divorce state, but infidelity could still impact alimony decisions and asset distribution if properly documented. The key word was documented. Over the next 3 hours, I researched surveillance laws, prenuptial agreement enforcement, and property trust structures. I made notes in a composition book, the kind kids use for school, nothing digital that could be traced or hacked. By midnight, I had a plan. The next morning, Rena left early for the station. She had a busy week of production, she said, including location shoots in Charleston. She'd be home late most nights. How convenient. I called in sick to my restoration client and spent the day at the house with Caleb, who was home with a minor cold. Nothing serious, but it gave us time to talk. "Remember that research project I mentioned?" I asked while he built another Lego contraption. "Yeah? I need you to help me install some security equipment, motion sensors, cameras. The house has been broken into twice in the past year in our neighborhood, and I want to protect your mom and sister." This was only partly true. The Hendersons 2 streets over had been burglarized, and there'd been a car break-in at the Malloys. But mostly, I needed to establish a legitimate reason for surveillance equipment. "That's so cool," Caleb said. "Like spy stuff?" "More like protection stuff. But it needs to stay quiet until I get everything set up properly. We don't want to worry your mom or Ava unnecessarily." We spent the afternoon installing wireless cameras in common areas, living room, kitchen, main hallway, all perfectly legal in my own home. I also installed a voice-activated recorder in the landline phone base, something so small and outdated that most people forgot landlines could be tapped. The cameras were motion-activated and stored footage on a local server in my workshop. Nothing went to the cloud. Nothing could be accessed remotely. Full control, no third-party vulnerabilities. That evening, Rena came home at nearly 10 o'clock, claiming her Charleston shoot had run late. She was energetic, almost giddy, the way she used to be after we'd had particularly good sex. "How was your day?" she asked, kissing my cheek. I caught a whiff of cologne that wasn't mine. "Quiet. Caleb and I worked on some projects." "That's nice, father-son bonding." She headed upstairs for a shower, and I noticed she took her phone with her. When had she started doing that? Over the next week, I fell into a routine. During the day, I worked on legitimate restoration projects and spent time with the kids. In the evenings, after everyone was asleep, I reviewed surveillance footage and planned my next moves. The footage was enlightening. Rena made phone calls from the kitchen, thinking she was alone. Short, coded conversations that meant nothing by themselves but formed a pattern when assembled together. "Can't wait to see you." He has no idea. Thursday would be perfect. I also noticed she'd started deleting her text messages immediately after sending them, but she'd forgotten about the old iPad in the kitchen drawer, the one synced to her iPhone that automatically backed up messages before she could delete them. Thursday morning, she announced she was driving to Charleston again for a family values segment interview. "I should be back by dinner," she said, kissing me goodbye. I waited 30 minutes, then followed her. Instead of heading toward the interstate to Charleston, she drove to the Hampton Inn on Abercorn Street. I parked across the lot and watched her walk to room 237. 10 minutes later, Seth's white pickup truck pulled into the same lot. I sat in my truck for 2 hours, taking photos with a telephoto lens, documenting arrival and departure times. When they finally came out, they were holding hands, laughing about something. Rena was wearing a hotel robe over her clothes. My wife was not just having an affair. She was having a bold, careless, insulting affair with my worst enemy. And she thought I was too stupid to notice. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that hotel room, about Seth's hands on my wife, about 17 years of marriage dissolving into a lie. But beneath the rage was something else, a cold, methodical anger that reminded me of the precision I brought to restoration work. When something was broken beyond repair, you didn't try to fix it. You salvaged what was valuable and discarded the rest. I got up and went to my workshop. In a locked cabinet, I kept important documents, insurance policies, warranties, legal papers. I pulled out our prenuptial agreement, signed 18 years ago when we were young and broke and thought we were being practical. Reading it by lamplight, I found what I was looking for. Section 7, Marital Conduct Clauses. If either party committed infidelity, they forfeited claim to property acquired during the marriage. Rena had insisted on that clause, ironically, because her parents had gone through a nasty divorce when she was in college. The agreement was still valid. I'd had it reviewed by a lawyer 5 years ago when we'd refinanced the house. But I needed proof. Real proof, not just photographs and suspicions. The next day, I drove to a private investigation firm in downtown Savannah. The office was in a converted Victorian house near the historic district, discreet and professional. The investigator was a woman named Diana Sheffield, late 40s, with graying hair and intelligent eyes. She'd retired from the Chatham County Sheriff's Office and specialized in domestic cases. "I need documentation of my wife's extramarital affair," I said without preamble. "How long has this been going on?" "I'm not sure. I discovered it last week, but the behavior suggests months, maybe years." "Have you confronted her?" "No. I want all the facts first." Diana nodded approvingly. "Smart. Emotional confrontations rarely go well legally. What kind of documentation do you have so far?" I showed her the photographs, played the recorded phone conversations, and explained about the deleted text messages. "This is good preliminary work," she said. "But courts want comprehensive proof, video evidence, financial records showing unexplained expenses, witnesses who can testify to the relationship." "What would that cost?" "Full surveillance package, 2 weeks minimum, probably $3,000. "Do it." We shook hands, and I wrote a check from my business account. Money well spent. That weekend, we had dinner with Felice and Seth, a monthly tradition that now felt like torture, but I played my part perfectly. The loving husband, the family man, the guy who worked with his hands and kept his head down. Seth was particularly obnoxious, making jokes about Elias and his wood, and asking if I was still playing with old furniture instead of making real money. It's honest work, I said mildly. Sure, but when are you going to think bigger? Real estate, development, projects with actual scale? The same conversation we'd had 3 years ago, right before he'd stolen my money and destroyed my trust. Rena laughed at his jokes, touched his arm when she talked to him, played the role of dutiful sister-in-law while eye-screwing her lover across the dinner table. Felice seemed oblivious, talking about their kids' soccer schedules and her part-time job at the library. She was a good woman, quiet and loyal, the kind of person who assumed everyone else was equally honest. After dinner, the men traditionally went to the porch for drinks while the women cleaned up. Another Southern tradition that felt increasingly ridiculous, but it gave me a chance to study Seth up close. You seem tense lately, he said, handing me a beer. Just work stress, big project coming up. Anything I can help with? I know we had our differences before, but that's ancient history. Ancient history. As if stealing $40,000 was just a misunderstanding between friends. I appreciate that, I said, but I'm handling it. Your call. Just remember, sometimes you need to take risks to get ahead. Playing it safe is playing it poor. I wondered if he was talking about business or screwing my wife. When we got home that night, Rena was unusually affectionate. She suggested we make love, something that had become rare over the past months. I couldn't do it. The thought of touching her after watching her flirt with Seth made my skin crawl. I'm tired, I said. Rain check? She looked hurt, but didn't push. Of course, you work so hard. If only she knew how hard I was working. Monday morning brought the first report from Diana Sheffield. Seth and Rena had met at the Hampton Inn again, this time for 3 hours in the middle of the day. Diana had photos of them entering and leaving, plus credit card receipts showing Seth had paid for the room. But the real breakthrough came from financial surveillance. Seth's construction company had been paying consulting fees to Rena's production company for the past 8 months, $5,000 monthly for media consulting services she'd never mentioned to me. It's a classic setup, Diana explained when I met her at a coffee shop near the river. He funnels money to her through fake business transactions, probably to help her hide assets or pay for things she doesn't want you to know about. Like what? Could be anything. Hotel rooms, trips, gifts, maybe even an apartment. I need to look deeper into her spending patterns. Do it. That evening, I sat Caleb down for another talk. He'd been helping me with the security system, checking cameras and making sure everything was working properly. The kid was naturally sneaky, a useful trait for what was coming next. I need you to pay attention to something, I said. Your mom's been acting differently lately, secretive, taking phone calls in private, staying out later, being vague about her work schedule. Caleb nodded thoughtfully. I noticed that too. Last week she said she was working late, but when I called the station, they said she'd left at 5. Smart kid. He'd already been putting pieces together. I think she might be in some kind of trouble, I said carefully. Maybe financial, maybe professional. I'm trying to help her, but I need to know what's really going on. What do you want me to do? Just watch. Listen. If you hear anything unusual or if she does anything that seems off, let me know, but don't let her know you're paying attention. Like spying, like caring about our family. The next week, Diana's surveillance paid off. She followed Rena and Seth to a cabin on Tybee Island, 30 minutes from Savannah. They spent an entire afternoon there, arriving separately and leaving separately like they were trying to avoid being seen together. The cabin's rented under Seth's company name, Diana reported. Month-to-month lease, paid in cash. Classic love nest setup. How long has he been renting it? Since January. So at least 6 months, probably longer. 6 months of planning, 6 months of lies, 6 months of my wife pretending to love me while she was building a secret life with another man. That night, Rena came home with takeout from our favorite Thai restaurant. She'd remembered I liked the Pad's CU extra spicy, remembered Ava preferred spring rolls to pot stickers, remembered Caleb wouldn't eat anything with mushrooms. She was a good mother, an attentive wife, a thoughtful partner in most ways, which made the betrayal feel even worse. How was your day? She asked, settling next to me on the couch. Fine. Yours? Busy. I'm working on a segment about family traditions, how parents pass values down to their children. The irony was suffocating. What values do you think we're passing down? I asked. She considered this seriously. Honesty, I hope. Integrity. The importance of hard work and keeping your commitments. I wanted to laugh or scream. Instead, I nodded and said, "Those sound right." Later that night, after Rena was asleep, I went to my workshop and made a list of our shared assets. The house, 3 vehicles, 2 investment accounts, my business equipment, her production company, everything we'd built together over 17 years. Then I made another list, what she deserved to keep after what she'd done to our family. The second list was much shorter. By Thursday, I had a complete picture of the affair. Diana's investigation had uncovered hotel receipts, restaurant charges, gas station purchases, and cell phone records that painted a clear timeline. Seth and Rena had been meeting regularly for at least 8 months, possibly longer. More importantly, I now knew their pattern. Thursday afternoons at the Tybee cabin, Saturday mornings at various hotels, occasional weekday lunches at restaurants outside Savannah where they thought they wouldn't be recognized. They had a routine, which meant they'd gotten comfortable. Comfortable people made mistakes. I was counting on it. Friday evening, I called a family meeting. Nothing dramatic, just gathering everyone in the living room after dinner to talk about summer plans. Ava wanted to spend July with friends at Myrtle Beach. Caleb was interested in a Lego robotics camp. "What about a family vacation?" Rena suggested. "Maybe we could rent a house somewhere for a week. Quality time together." Quality time. From a woman who'd been screwing another man for 8 months. "That sounds nice," I said. "Where were you thinking?" "Maybe the mountains, Asheville area. I could film some segments about Appalachian crafts while we're there." Or maybe she was hoping Seth could find an excuse to join us. His construction company did work in North Carolina. "Let's look into it," I said. After the kids went to bed, Rena curled up next to me on the couch. We watched a movie about a couple rebuilding their marriage after infidelity. The husband forgave his wife. They went to counseling. They recommitted to honesty and communication. "That's beautiful," Rena said when the credits rolled. "It gives me hope." "Hope for what?" "That people can overcome anything if they really love each other." I looked at her lying against my shoulder, her wedding ring catching the lamplight, her face soft with what looked like genuine emotion. For a moment, I almost believed she meant it, almost believed this was all a mistake, a phase, something we could work through. Then I remembered Seth's hands on her in that hotel parking lot, remembered the coded phone calls, remembered 8 months of calculated lies. "Yeah," I said, "love can overcome anything." Saturday morning, Rena announced she was meeting her sister for shopping and lunch. "Girl time," she said, kissing my cheek. "I should be back by 4. I knew she was actually driving to Tybee Island to spend the afternoon with Seth. Diana had confirmed they'd reserved the cabin for the weekend. This time, I was ready. I waited 30 minutes after Rena left, then loaded my pickup truck with tools and drove to Seth's construction office. Saturday mornings, he worked alone in his shop, catching up on paperwork and preparing for the next week. His office was in a converted warehouse on the industrial side of town, surrounded by other construction businesses and auto repair shops. Perfect privacy for what I had planned. Seth's white pickup was in the lot, along with his work van and a small excavator. I parked next to the building and walked to the front door. He looked surprised to see me. "Elias, what are you doing here?" "We need to talk," I said. "About what?" "About you screwing my wife." His face went through several expressions: surprise, denial, calculation, finally settling on defiance. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The Hampton Inn, room 237, the cabin on Tybee Island, 8 months of hotel receipts and gas station charges. Should I keep going?" Seth stepped back into his office, and I followed, closing the door behind me. The space was cluttered with blueprints, building supplies, and the kind of organized chaos that comes with running a small business. "Look, Elias, I'm not done," I said. $5,000 a month in consulting fees to Rena's company. For what? Media advice, marketing strategy, or just payment for services rendered? It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You're paying my wife to sleep with you, and you've been doing it for months. Seth moved behind his desk, putting furniture between us. Smart move, because I was considering whether hitting him would feel better than what I had planned. "She came to me," he said. "She was unhappy, said you two were having problems. I didn't plan for this to happen. But you're glad it did. I care about her, more than you do, apparently." That's when I understood something important. Seth actually believed he was the good guy in this story. He'd convinced himself that he was rescuing Rena from an unhappy marriage. that their affair was some kind of romantic salvation. How long? I asked. What? How long have you been planning to steal my wife the way you stole my money? His face hardened. That business deal was legitimate. You just didn't understand the terms. I understood them perfectly. You forged my signature on property transfers and walked away with $100,000 while I ate $40,000 in debt. That's not how it happened. That's exactly how it happened. And now you're doing it again, except this time you're stealing my family instead of my money. We stared at each other across his cluttered office, and I saw something in his eyes that confirmed my worst fears. He wasn't just having an affair with my wife. He was planning to take her away from me permanently. She deserves better, he said finally. Better than what? Better than a guy who plays with old furniture and thinks small. Better than someone who can't give her the life she wants. And you can. I'm building something. A real business, real money, real opportunities. What are you building? Cabinets? This was the same conversation we'd had 3 years ago. The same condescending tone. The same assumption that I was too stupid to understand how the world really worked. But I wasn't the same man who'd trusted him back then. You're right, I said. I do think small. I focus on details. I pay attention to the little things other people miss. Meaning? Meaning I know about your permit violations on the Riverside project, the electrical work you did without inspection, the structural changes you made without approval. I know about the liens against your business and the payments you've been missing to subcontractors. Seth's confidence flickered. How do you... Details, Seth. I'm good with details, and I've been doing research. This was partly bluff, partly truth. I'd spent the week researching Seth's business practices, and what I'd found wasn't pretty. His company was leveraged to the breaking point, skating by on charm and delayed payments, the kind of operation that worked as long as nothing went wrong. I was about to make sure everything went wrong. What do you want? He asked. I want you to end it with my wife. Today, right now. Call her and tell her it's over. And if I don't, then I file complaints with the building department about your permit violations. I contact your subcontractors about the money you owe them. I make some phone calls to people who might be interested in your business practices. You can't prove anything. I don't have to prove anything. I just have to raise questions. How long do you think your business survives when people start asking questions about your work? Seth was quiet for a long moment, thinking through the implications. His construction company was his identity, his income, his future with my wife. Without it, he was just another divorced guy with debt and empty promises. This is blackmail, he said finally. This is consequences. I love her. You love the idea of taking something that belongs to me, just like you did with the Riverside house. She's not your property. No, but our marriage is, and you've been stealing from it for 8 months. I pulled out my phone and set it on his desk. Call her. End it. Do it now, or I start making my own phone calls. Seth stared at the phone, then at me, weighing his options. I could see him trying to find a way out, some angle he could work, some way to keep both his business and my wife. There wasn't one. He picked up the phone and dialed. I heard it ring once, twice, then Rena's voice. Hey, Zexy, I'm just pulling into the... Rena, we need to talk, Seth interrupted. What's wrong? You sound weird. I can't do this anymore. Us. It has to stop. Silence on the other end, then. What are you talking about? Where are you? I'm at the office. Elias is here. Elias is there? What's going on? He knows. About us. Everything. I heard Rena's sharp intake of breath, heard her car door slam in the background. How much does he know? She asked, her voice different now, calculating. Everything. The hotels, the cabin, the money, all of it. Crap. Okay, let me think. Where is he now? He's right here, listening. Put him on the phone. Seth handed me the phone. She wants to talk to you. Hello, Rena. Elias. Her voice was carefully controlled, the same tone she used for difficult interviews. I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. I know about your affair. I have photographs, hotel receipts, phone records, financial statements. I know about the consulting fees, the cabin rental, the whole thing. We should talk about this at home, privately. We're talking about it now. Seth just ended your relationship. It's over. You can't just... I did. It's done. Elias, please, let me explain. There's nothing to explain. You've been cheating on me for 8 months with a man who stole from me. You've been lying to our children, to your sister, to everyone who trusts you. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. Go home, Rena. We'll talk when I get there. I hung up and pocketed the phone. Seth was slumped in his chair, looking like a man who'd just watched his future disappear. "It's over," I said. "She won't let it be over. You don't know her like I do. I've known her for 17 years. I know exactly who she is. Do you?" That question followed me out of his office and back to my truck. Did I know who Rena really was? Or had I been married to a carefully constructed version of her, a performance designed to keep me happy and unaware while she built a secret life? The drive home took 20 minutes. 20 minutes to think about what came next. Ending the affair was just the first step. Now I had to decide whether my marriage was worth saving or if too much damage had been done. Rena's car was in the driveway when I got home. Through the window, I could see her pacing in the kitchen, talking on her phone, probably to a lawyer, maybe to a friend, definitely trying to figure out how to minimize the damage. I sat in my truck for a moment, gathering my thoughts. Inside that house were my children, my life, everything I'd worked to build over the past 17 years. Rena had risked all of it for 8 months with a man who'd already proven he couldn't be trusted. The question was, what was salvageable? I walked through the front door to find Rena waiting in the living room. She looked pale, shaken, but not defeated. Not yet. "We need to talk," she said. "Yes, we do." She gestured to the couch, but I remained standing. This wasn't a conversation between equals anymore. This was a negotiation between someone who'd been betrayed and someone who'd been caught. "I know how this looks," she began. "It looks like you've been cheating on me with Seth Tremaine for 8 months while pretending to be a loving wife and mother. It's more complicated than that. How is infidelity complicated?" Rena took a deep breath, composing herself the way she did before difficult interviews. "Our marriage has been struggling for years. We both know that. We've grown apart, stopped connecting, stopped being intimate. So you decided to be intimate with my former business partner instead of talking to me about it. I tried to talk to you. You're always in your workshop, always focused on your projects, always treating me like another piece of furniture to be maintained. When did you try to talk to me? Lots of times. Last Christmas, when I suggested we take a couple's vacation. You said you were too busy. Last spring, when I asked if we could go to counseling together. You said we didn't need it. I remembered those conversations differently, but maybe that didn't matter anymore. Maybe we'd both been telling ourselves different stories about our marriage, seeing what we wanted to see instead of what was really there. That doesn't justify what you did, I said. I know. I'm not trying to justify it. I'm trying to explain it. Explain taking money from him. Explain the secret phone calls, the lies to our children, the fake business consulting. Explain 8 months of calculated deception. Rena's composure cracked slightly. The money wasn't payment for what you think. Seth was helping me start my own production company, real independence, not just segments for the local station, with consulting fees for services you never provided. I was providing services, market research, demographic analysis, media strategy, from bed. That's not fair. Fair, I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been coming to me when our marriage hit problems instead of running to the man who stole $40,000 from me. You never got over that business thing with Seth. You've held that grudge for 3 years. That business thing nearly bankrupted me. It cost us our savings, almost cost us this house. And now you're sleeping with him. People change, Elias. People deserve second chances. Do they? Do I deserve a second chance to trust my wife? Do our kids deserve a second chance to believe their mother is who they think she is? That hit home. Rena's face crumpled, and for the first time since I'd caught her, she looked genuinely ashamed. The kids don't know, she said quietly. Caleb knows something's wrong. Ava suspects. Kids aren't stupid, Rena. They pick up on things. What did you tell them? Nothing. Yet. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm still deciding what to do about this. What are your options? I'd been thinking about this for days, running through scenarios and consequences, weighing costs and benefits like a complex restoration project. Option 1. We try to work through this, counseling, rebuilding trust, staying together for the kids. I'd like that. Option 2. We separate quietly, minimal drama, split custody, try to preserve some dignity for everyone involved. And option 3? Option 3 is that I stop protecting you from the consequences of your choices. Rena studied my face, trying to read something in my expression. What does that mean? It means I have enough evidence to destroy you in a divorce proceeding. Infidelity, hidden assets, breach of our prenuptial agreement. I could take everything. You wouldn't do that. A week ago, I wouldn't have thought you'd cheat on me with Seth Tremaine. People surprise you. We stared at each other across our living room, surrounded by 17 years of shared memories and accumulated life. Family photos on the mantle, vacation souvenirs on the bookshelf, my custom-built entertainment center that had taken 3 months to complete. All of it felt fragile now, temporary, like furniture balanced on the edge of collapse. I love you, Rena said suddenly. I know that sounds ridiculous given everything that's happened, but I do love you. I've always loved you. Just not enough to stay faithful. I made a mistake, a terrible, stupid mistake, but it doesn't erase 17 years of marriage. Doesn't it? If you could lie to me for 8 months, how do I know you haven't been lying about other things? How do I know any of this is real? Because you know me. I thought I did. Rena moved closer, and I caught that same cologne scent I'd noticed the week before. Another man's cologne on my wife's skin. Give me a chance to fix this, she said. Give us a chance. What would that look like? Whatever you want. Complete transparency, counseling, cutting all contact with Seth, anything. You already cut contact with Seth, I made sure of that. Then what else? What do you need from me? I thought about Diana Sheffield's investigation, about the hotel receipts and financial records, about 8 months of careful planning and calculated risks. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a temporary lapse in judgment. This was a sustained campaign of deception. I need time, I said finally. Time to think about whether what we had is worth saving or if too much damage has been done. How much time? I don't know, weeks, maybe months. And what happens in the meantime? In the meantime, you sleep in the guest room. You answer any questions I have honestly and completely. You don't contact Seth for any reason, and you figure out how to explain to Ava and Caleb why Mommy and Daddy are having problems. Elias, those are the terms. Take them or don't, but don't try to negotiate. You lost your negotiating position when you decided to screw another man. The crude language hit her like a slap. Rena flinched, tears forming in her eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Sorry you did it, or sorry you got caught? Both. Either. I don't know anymore. That, at least, sounded honest. The next few days passed in a strange, suspended animation. Rena moved her things to the guest room and tried to act normal around the kids. I worked in my shop and tried to figure out how I felt about everything that had happened. The affair was over, but the damage remained. Every conversation felt loaded with subtext. Every interaction was filtered through the knowledge of her betrayal. I found myself studying her face during dinner, looking for signs of deception, wondering what else she might be hiding. Wednesday evening, Diana Sheffield called with her final report. I've got everything you asked for, she said. Financial records, communication logs, photographic evidence, witness statements. It's comprehensive. What's the bottom line? Your wife and Seth Tremaine have been conducting an intimate relationship for at least 8 months, possibly longer. There's evidence of at least 15 hotel meetings, 12 visits to the rented cabin, and dozens of restaurants and other public locations. The financial component involves monthly payments totaling $40,000 over 8 months. $40,000. Between the consulting fees and direct payments for hotels, meals, gifts, and other expenses, it's a significant financial relationship alongside the personal one. $40,000. The same amount Seth had stolen from me 3 years ago. Was that a coincidence, or was this his way of using my wife to steal from me again? What about witnesses? I spoke with 3 hotel employees who recognized them as repeat customers. The cabin rental included a cleaning service that can testify to evidence of overnight stays, and I have statements from 2 restaurant servers who remember them as a couple who came in regularly. Anything else? One more thing. Seth Tremaine's business is in worse shape than you thought. He's 3 months behind on his commercial lease, has liens from 2 suppliers, and his business license is under review for permit violations. This affair might have been as much about financial survival as it was about romance. After I hung up, I sat in my workshop for a long time thinking about patterns and motivations. Seth wasn't just sleeping with my wife, he was using her as a source of income while his business collapsed. And Rena wasn't just having an affair, she was being manipulated by a man with a history of financial deception. It didn't excuse what she'd done, but it added another layer to the betrayal. Thursday morning, I got a call from Tommy Beaumont at the auction house. Elias, you asked about that mirror from the Whitfield estate? I've got an interesting update. What kind of update? Mrs. Whitfield called yesterday. Apparently, that mirror has some history. It belonged to her grandmother, who used to say it showed people's true nature. Family legend was that looking into it would reveal secrets and hidden intentions. Folklore? Maybe. But Mrs. Whitfield wanted you to know that her grandmother always claimed the crack happened the day her grandfather discovered her grandmother's affair. Split the glass right down the middle when the truth came out. I thanked Tommy and hung up, staring at the mirror I'd bought that first day. It was hanging in my workshop now, the crack still running from corner to corner like a fault line through glass. Maybe there was something to folklore after all. That evening, Ava knocked on my workshop door. She rarely came out to the shop, preferring the house's comfort to the sawdust and noise of my workspace. Dad, can we talk? Of course, come in. She perched on my workbench, looking uncomfortable. At 17, she was caught between childhood and adulthood, still needing her parents, but starting to see them as flawed human beings. Is everything okay? With you and Mom? The question I'd been dreading. Why do you ask? You're sleeping in separate rooms. Mom's been crying when she thinks nobody's watching. And you've been different, distant. We're going through a rough patch, I said carefully. Sometimes marriages hit difficult periods. Are you getting divorced? I don't know yet. I hope not, but I honestly don't know. Ava was quiet for a moment, processing this. Is it because of money? Mom's been worried about money lately? What makes you say that? She's been taking phone calls about business stuff, talking about investments and consulting contracts. She seems stressed about it. I wondered how much Ava had overheard, how much she'd pieced together on her own. It's not about money, I said. It's about trust. Did Mom do something? Yes. Something bad? Yes. Do you still love her? That was the question I'd been avoiding, the one that cut to the heart of everything. Did I still love the woman who'd betrayed me? Or had 8 months of lies eliminated whatever feelings I'd had for her? I love the person I thought she was, I said finally. I'm not sure how I feel about the person she actually is. That's sad. Yeah, it is. Ava hugged me then, a fierce 17-year-old hug that reminded me why preserving our family mattered more than my wounded pride. Whatever happens, she said, don't shut us out. Caleb and me. We can handle more than you think. I'll remember that. Friday afternoon, Rena came to the workshop. She'd been giving me space all week, but I could see the effort it was taking. She was used to talking through problems, to fixing things with conversation and compromise. This wasn't a problem that could be talked away. I got a call from the station, she said. They want to know when I'll be back. I've been taking sick days, but I can't put them off much longer, so go back to work. I wanted to check with you first, make sure it was okay. You don't need my permission to do your job. I know that, I don't want to do anything that makes this worse. Going back to work won't make it worse. Lying to me again would make it worse. She nodded, accepting the implicit warning. Have you thought about what you want to do? About us? I think about it constantly. And I don't have an answer yet. The not knowing is eliminating me. Good. It should eliminate you. You eliminated 17 years of trust in 8 months. You should feel some of that pain. It was a cruel thing to say, but I wasn't feeling particularly charitable. Every day brought new reminders of her betrayal. A song on the radio that reminded me of Seth, a restaurant we'd eaten at as a family while she was secretly meeting her lover, small moments that felt poisoned by the knowledge of her affair. I know you're angry, she said. You have every right to be angry. But at some point, you'll have to decide whether you want to stay angry or try to move forward. Moving forward requires knowing that we have something worth saving. Don't we? I don't know. Do we? We looked at each other across the workshop, surrounded by tools and half-finished projects and the smell of wood stain. This space had always been my refuge, my place of creation and repair. Now, it felt like a courtroom where I was trying to decide the fate of my marriage. I made a mistake, Rena said quietly. A terrible, unforgivable mistake. But I want to fix it. I want to rebuild what we had. What we had was based on trust. How do you rebuild that? Slowly, carefully, by proving every day that I'm the person you married, not the person who made this mistake. But you are the person who made this mistake. That's who you really are. Is it, or is this one bad decision in 17 years of good ones? I didn't have an answer for that. Maybe there wasn't an answer. Maybe some questions didn't have clean resolutions, just ongoing negotiations between competing truths. That weekend, Caleb helped me work on a restored 1940s dining table. The piece had come from an estate sale, damaged by water and neglect, but the bones were solid. Good craftsmanship underneath the surface problems. Think you can save it? Caleb asked, running his hand over the warped tabletop. Depends on how deep the damage goes, I said. Sometimes you can sand away the surface problems and find something beautiful underneath. Sometimes the damage goes all the way through. How do you tell the difference? You have to strip away everything that's hiding the truth. Then you see what you're really working with. We spent the afternoon carefully removing old varnish and water stains, revealing the wood's natural grain beneath decades of misuse. It was slow work, requiring patience and attention to detail, but gradually the table's original beauty emerged. It's going to be gorgeous, Caleb said, admiring the exposed walnut. Yeah, but it'll never be exactly what it was before the damage. It'll always carry scars. Does that make it less valuable? Sometimes. Sometimes it makes it more interesting. Monday morning brought another call from Diana Sheffield. I've got some additional information you might find interesting, she said, about Seth Tremaine's financial situation. What kind of information? He filed for bankruptcy protection last week, personal and business. Apparently, the permit violations you mentioned triggered a domino effect. Suppliers called in debts, his insurance was canceled, and 3 major contracts were terminated. How does that affect the affair? It doesn't legally, but it suggests his relationship with your wife might have been more mercenary than romantic. $40,000 would have kept his business afloat for another few months. So Seth had been using Rena's guilt and my money to finance his failing business while destroying my marriage. The calculation behind it was breathtaking in its callousness. There's something else, Diana continued. Seth's been calling your wife multiple times since you confronted him. Her phone records show declined calls and voicemails. She said she cut off contact. She's not taking his calls, but he's still trying to reach her. You might want to monitor that situation. I thanked Diana and hung up, thinking about patterns of behavior and the persistence of bad decisions. Seth wasn't the type to give up easily, especially when his financial survival was at stake. That evening, I confronted Rena about the phone calls. He's been calling you, I said without preamble. I haven't answered, but he's been calling. Yes. What does he want? I don't know. I delete the voicemails without listening to them. Show me your phone. She hesitated, then handed over her iPhone. I scrolled through the call log, finding 15 missed calls from Seth's number over the past week. All declined, as she'd said. The voicemails are still there, I pointed out. I said I'd delete them. I didn't say I'd already done it. Play them. Elias, play them now. Rena reluctantly opened her voicemail and put the phone on speaker. Seth's voice filled our kitchen, desperate and angry. Rena, you can't just cut me off like this. We need to talk. There are things Elias doesn't understand about our situation. The next message was angrier. I know you're listening to these. Call me back. Don't let him destroy what we have. The third message was pleading. My business is falling apart. I need those consulting payments to continue. We had an agreement. The fourth message was threatening. If you don't call me back, I'm coming to your house. We're going to resolve this one way or another. I looked at Rena, whose face had gone pale. When was that last message? She checked the timestamp. This afternoon? And you weren't going to tell me? I was hoping he'd stop calling. He's not going to stop. Men like Seth don't give up when they're desperate. What do you want me to do? Change your number. File a restraining order. Whatever it takes to make this end completely. That seems extreme. Extreme? He threatened to come to our house, where our children live. How is protecting our family extreme? Rena nodded reluctantly. You're right. I'll call the police tomorrow. We'll call the police tomorrow, together. I want to make sure this is handled properly. That night, I barely slept. Every sound outside made me think Seth might be following through on his threat. I kept a baseball bat next to the bed and checked the security cameras every hour. At 3 a.m., motion sensors triggered an alert from the driveway camera. I grabbed the bat and looked at the monitor, expecting to see Seth's pickup truck. Instead, I saw a deer wandering through our yard, setting off sensors as it moved toward the lake. But the adrenaline rush reminded me how vulnerable we were, how much damage one desperate man could do to a family trying to rebuild. Tuesday morning, Rena and I went to the sheriff's office together. Deputy Martinez listened to our story and Seth's voicemails with professional concern. Has he made any physical threats? Martinez asked. He said he'd come to our house to resolve this, I said. That's not technically a threat of violence, but given the circumstances, I think we can justify a temporary restraining order. It'll prohibit him from contacting your wife or coming within 500 feet of your property. How long does that last? 2 weeks initially, then we can extend it if needed, but you'll need to document any violations. We filled out paperwork and swore statements, officially involving the legal system in our personal disaster. Rena seemed embarrassed by the process, but I felt relieved. Seth was now legally prohibited from maltreating my family. The restraining order was served Wednesday afternoon. According to Deputy Martinez, Seth had been agitated but compliant when he received it. He asked a lot of questions about the specific terms, Martinez told me over the phone. Wanted to know exactly where the boundaries were, what constituted contact, whether business communication was permitted. What did you tell him? That any contact with your wife or presence on your property would be a violation. He seemed to understand. Thursday evening, while I was working late in my shop, Caleb came running in with wide eyes. Dad, there's someone in the driveway. I looked at the security monitor and saw Seth's pickup truck parked at the end of our driveway, technically off our property, but clearly watching the house. Call 911, I told Caleb. Tell them someone is violating a restraining order. I grabbed my phone and took pictures of Seth's truck, noting the time and location. If he wanted to play legal games, I'd give him a legal response. The sheriff's deputy arrived 15 minutes later, but by then, Seth was gone. However, the security cameras had captured clear footage of his truck and license plate. This is definitely a violation, Deputy Martinez said, reviewing the footage. He's testing the boundaries of the restraining order. What happens now? We issue a warrant for his arrest. If he contacts your family again, he goes to jail. Friday morning brought surprising news. Seth had been arrested at his office, charged with violating the restraining order. His bail was set at $10,000, which he apparently couldn't afford given his bankruptcy filing. He would be spending the weekend in jail. That should give you some peace of mind, Deputy Martinez said when he called with the update. It did, but it also made me realize how far this situation had spiraled beyond a simple marital affair. We were now dealing with police, courts, and legal consequences that would follow all of us for years. That weekend, Rena and I had our longest conversation since the confrontation began. I never wanted it to go this far, she said. We were sitting on the back porch, watching the sun set over the lake. I never imagined Seth would become dangerous. You never imagined a lot of things, like how this would affect our children, or our marriage, or our future. I know, I was selfish and stupid and I hurt everyone I care about. So what now? I don't know. What do you want to happen now? It was a fair question, one I'd been avoiding for 2 weeks. What did I want? Revenge? Reconciliation? Some middle ground between forgiveness and divorce? I want to believe this marriage is worth saving, I said finally, but I don't know if I can trust you enough to make it work. What would it take? For you to trust me again? Time, consistency, proof that you're committed to rebuilding what you destroyed. How long? I don't know. Maybe years, maybe never. That's the reality of what you did, Rena. Some damage doesn't heal completely. She was quiet for a long time, watching the lake water lap against our dock. I'm willing to try. For as long as it takes. Are you? Really? Because it's going to be hard. I'm going to question everything you do, everywhere you go, everyone you talk to. I'm going to be suspicious and resentful and probably not very much fun to live with. I deserve that. Yes, you do. The question is whether you can handle it. Monday morning, I made a decision. I called Diana Sheffield and told her I was terminating her investigation. Are you sure? She asked. I could continue monitoring the situation with Seth, make sure he's not planning anything else. He's in jail and we have a restraining order. I think we're covered. What about your wife? Do you want me to continue surveillance? No. Either I trust her or I don't. Hiring someone to spy on her isn't going to rebuild our marriage. It felt like a significant step, choosing trust over verification. Not because I was certain Rena wouldn't betray me again, but because constant surveillance would poison whatever chance we had at reconciliation. That afternoon, I had a different kind of conversation with Seth. He called from jail, using his one permitted phone call to contact me instead of a lawyer. Elias, I need to talk to you. We have nothing to talk about. Please, Just 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I stayed on the line. I'm sorry, he said. I know that doesn't mean much, but I am genuinely sorry for what happened. You're sorry you got caught. I'm sorry I hurt your family. I'm sorry I destroyed my own family. I'm sorry I made such a mess of everything. Why did you do it? Because I was angry and broke and felt like life had cheated me? Because your wife was beautiful and available and made me feel like I was worth something? And the money? I needed it. My business was failing and I was desperate. But it wasn't just about money. I cared about her. I still care about her. She's not available anymore. I know, I get that now. I'm not going to contact her again. You better not. The next violation puts you back in jail for a lot longer. I understand. But Elias, take care of her. She's a good person who made a bad decision. Don't let my mistakes destroy your marriage. It was an unexpected sentiment from a man who'd been trying to steal my wife for 8 months. Why do you care what happens to my marriage? Because I've lost everything else. My business, my family, my reputation. Maybe something good can come out of this disaster if you two find a way to work it out. I hung up without responding, but his words stayed with me. Seth was right about one thing. Rena was a good person who'd made a bad decision. The question was whether that bad decision defined her or whether it was an aberration in an otherwise honest life. That evening, I moved my clothes back into our bedroom, not because I'd forgiven her, but because sleeping in separate rooms was hurting our kids and accomplishing nothing constructive. Rena looked surprised when she found me unpacking my dresser. Does this mean... It means I'm tired of letting your affair control where I sleep in my own house. Okay. It doesn't mean everything is fine. We're still broken, but we're going to try to fix it. Together? Together. She hugged me then, carefully, like she was testing whether I'd pull away. I didn't. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was a beginning. 2 weeks later, Seth was released from jail and immediately left Savannah. His lawyer called to inform us he'd moved to Atlanta, where his brother lived, and had no plans to return. He asked me to convey his apologies to your family, the lawyer said, and to assure you he won't be making any further contact. It felt like the end of a chapter, though not the end of the story. Rena and I started marriage counseling the following week. Dr. Patricia Foster was a no-nonsense therapist who specialized in infidelity recovery. Her office was comfortable but not cozy, professional but not cold. Rebuilding trust after an affair is like restoring a house after fire damage, she told us during our first session. You have to tear out everything that's been compromised, assess what's salvageable, and rebuild from a solid foundation. What if too much is damaged? I asked. Then you decide whether to rebuild or start over somewhere else. But you can't make that decision until you know the full extent of the damage. Over the following months, we did the hard work of examining our marriage honestly. We talked about the problems that had existed before the affair, the communication failures and emotional distance that had created space for Seth's manipulation. Rena took full responsibility for her choices, but we also acknowledged the ways we'd both contributed to our marriage's vulnerability. I'd been distant and focused on work. She'd been feeling unappreciated and taken for granted. None of that excused the affair, but it helped explain how we'd gotten so far off track. The kids adjusted to our new reality with the resilience that children often show. Ava asked hard questions about trust and forgiveness. Caleb wanted to know if we were going to stay together. We're trying, I told them. But it's going to take time. 6 months after the confrontation, we took our first family vacation since everything had happened. A week in the North Carolina mountains, staying in a cabin I'd rented through a restoration client. It wasn't perfect. There were moments of awkwardness, times when the weight of what had happened settled over us like fog. But there were also moments of genuine connection, glimpses of the family we'd been and might be again. One evening, while the kids were playing board games, Rena and I sat on the cabin's porch watching the sunset over the Blue Ridge Mountains. Do you think we're going to make it? She asked. I think we're making progress. That's not the same thing. No, it's not, but it's something. She reached for my hand, and this time I didn't hesitate to take it. A year after Seth's arrest, Rena got a promotion at the television station. She was named senior producer for a new community affairs program, a significant step up from her previous role. I got the job on my own merit, she told me that evening. No outside consulting, no questionable financial arrangements, just my work and my reputation. Congratulations. You deserve it. Do I? After everything that happened? You deserve the chance to prove yourself again. What you do with that chance is up to you. We'd both learned to live with ambiguity, with questions that didn't have clean answers. Our marriage was different now, more honest in some ways, more fragile in others. We'd lost the easy intimacy of couples who'd never been tested. But we'd gained something else, the knowledge that we could survive hard times together. The antique mirror still hangs in my workshop, its crack running from corner to corner like a permanent reminder of the day my marriage broke apart. But I've learned something about cracks in beautiful things. Sometimes they don't destroy the whole piece. Sometimes they just add character, creating something that's damaged but not destroyed, scarred but still functional. 17 years of marriage doesn't disappear because of 8 months of betrayal. Trust doesn't rebuild overnight because the affair ends. Love doesn't die because it's been wounded, but it doesn't survive just because it once existed. Some broken things can be restored. Others need to be discarded. The skill is in knowing the difference. I'm still learning that skill. Rena is still proving she's worth the effort. Our children are still watching to see how this story ends. And Seth Tremaine is gone from our lives, taking his financial desperation and moral weakness to a different city where he can't hurt my family anymore. The mirror reflects truthfully now, showing two people who've been through hell together and chosen to keep walking towards something better. The crack will always be there, a fault line through the glass that can't be repaired. But we've learned to see beauty in broken things, value in damaged goods, hope in restoration projects that require patience and skill and faith that the work will be worth it in the end. 2 years later, I'm still not certain our marriage will survive, but I'm certain it's worth the effort to find out. The mirror keeps its secrets now, reflecting only what's in front of it. No more revelations hidden in cracked glass. No more devastating truths revealed in silvered reflections. Just two people working to rebuild something they both broke. Something they both want to save. That's enough for now.